So, good morning, Monique.
Good morning, Daniel. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for the Solid Leaders webinar. You're in for a treat. Daniel is very knowledgeable about coaching executives and CEOs into the next phases of either their career or of their life. Just ask that you just really pay attention for the next 30 minutes. Daniel is very concise and very to the point, and he's not going to waste a moment of your time. So if you would just silence your cell phones, your emails, any dinging, anything in the background that would distract you, that would be great. And we will be asking you some questions along the way. This is a bit of an interactive webinar, and so we really encourage your participation. It makes it fun, and we encourage you to ask questions. We will take those questions at the end of the webinar. So if you'll just be putting them in the chat or in the Q&A, I will be monitoring all of that, and we'll be sure to get to all of your questions. Thank you so much for being here.
Monique, thank you. And Monique's our Chief Marketing Officer, and she does a wonderful job. She has lots of stats that she collects on career advancement, and so we'll share a little bit of that along the way as well. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen with you and lay it from the start. Strategic career planning for leaders. It's a roadmap for advancing a leader's career. Section 1 is starting with the end in mind. So multiple streams make a river. Multiple streams of interest and multiple streams of activity make a rich river of life. As you get older and as you progress in your career, there's a natural process of diversifying your interest and diversifying your activities to prepare for what I call portfolio life.
Daniel, we can't see your screen. Could you click that button again for us?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Let me see. I thought I was sharing my screen, and I guess I am not. Let me go to share screen, and there you go.
There we go. Thank you.
Okay, sorry about that.
Okay.
Okay, so should I play it from the start?
If you choose to, that would be great. Sure.
All right, there you go. Strat planning for leaders. Starting with the end in mind. You didn't want to miss this pretty picture. So here's a river, and here's many streams feeding into the river, and that makes for a rich river of activity and resources in semi-retirement. How did this deck come about, and why the interest in strategic career planning? Well, most executives don't plan their careers, and I got started in executive coaching when I was 30 years old. That's 31 years ago, and I was always coaching people 10 to 20 years my senior. So over the last 10 or 15 years, I really got to see a whole bunch of executives go into what they were thinking was retirement. And so my experience, and hundreds of experiences of watching executives, who did it well and who didn't do it well. And so here's what I've come up with. Retirement is a bad idea. Within 6 months, dullness sets in. It accelerates mental and physical deterioration. It's demoralizing, and you should retire when you need hospice. Portfolio life is the solution. It's diversified, just like a smorgasbord of activities. A diversified investment portfolio is a good analogy. You have stocks, bonds, CDs, cash, real estate. Well, a diversified career portfolio where you're doing a little bit of a number of different things, sitting on for-profit boards, nonprofit boards, speaking, teaching, writing, coaching, consulting, advising, interim executive work, helping in a family business, maybe that one of your kids has started that you need to get involved in. Who knows what, but there is a small set of activities that executives typically do when they're not doing a full-time role. And we'll look at those things today. So, question, what is your strategic plan? Do you have one? Most executives are strategy-less. They don't have a career strategy. And I think it's very ironic that you spend hundreds and hundreds of hours over the course of your career doing strategic planning for your companies. But usually, my experience is executives don't do spend any time doing strat planning for their own careers. And if they do, they don't document it. And if they do document it, it's not documented well. So the action here, take control over your career. It's dangerous not to have a plan. And I'm just interested, Monique, how many people have a written career plan? So let's maybe do a poll. Planning starts with the end in mind. And here's your first question. Are you starting to plan for portfolio life now? It includes both long-range and tactical vision. I learned this from one of my first executive coaching clients, John Padgett. He was CEO of Interlogic Trace, a 2,000 employee company in San Antonio, Texas. And John had hired our firm, and I was the CEO of the firm at the time. And we were OD consultancy, and I had a whole bunch of PhDs in OD doing change management. But I was experimenting with this concept back in 1987 of individual change management, so individual OD, because I'm seeing the individual executive as a closed system, a head, heart, and hands, mind, emotions, and a will. So anyway, I was experimenting with this. John hired me to do OD work for him, but he had to do a riff, and he put himself in the riff because he was actually office of the president. So it was a two-in-the-box kind of role. They were president, co-president, and co-CEOs. So John said, Daniel, I'm riffing myself. I'm laying myself off, and I'd like you to be my coach. Help me to get to the next level. I said, well, I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'll definitely take your money, and I'll definitely try to help you. So I wrote his resume, and I did a whole bunch of, I had to research, what is it? What is career coaching? And really there was career counseling back then, but we didn't have executive career coaching. But anyway, he taught me this. He said, you know, you really need bifocal vision. You need to look short range at what you're going to do, and you also need to do long range thinking. We'll talk about that right now. But you need a roadmap. If you're going to go from Dallas to Denver, well, you could go via LA and San Francisco, but it's not advisable. So without a roadmap, you're not going to get nearly as far in your career, nearly as fast as if you had one. So there's steps to developing a roadmap. Number one, develop long-range goals. So start with the end in mind, back to our original theme. So what is that end? That end is portfolio life. What is portfolio life? Portfolio life is a diversified set of activities. Think of it as semi-retirement. You never should stop doing activities, but you're diversified and you're not in a full-time role. Step number two, define your mid-range goals. And step number three, define what you're going to do in your next role. We call this three-step process, reverse engineering your career. Now, the question often comes up, Daniel, what should I do? What should I do next? Or just what should I do in general with my career? And I look at resumes, and thousands and thousands of resumes. I've had literally 1,350 some odd clients to date. So a lot of pattern recognition is coming at you right now. And what I found is this: you should hit your sweet spot. And the older you are and the more mature in your career you are, the more you should hit your sweet spot. What is your sweet spot? It's the intersection of four key indices: natural direction of your career, i.e., if you're a senior vice president of sales and you're 55 years old, you probably shouldn't retool, go back to school, get an accounting degree, and then have aspirations to be a CFO someday. So the natural direction of your career, your greatest soft skills, your proven abilities, and your greatest passion. And the older you get, passion becomes more and more important. Monique, I think we have another poll that we're going to do.
You want to share the results from the last poll?
Yeah,
So,
sure.
Okay, so the question was, are you starting to plan for a portfolio life now? And we have 79% of the people on the webinar here today said yes, and 21% said no.
Perfect. Well, let's see if we can move that 21% up.
Right.
And let's get 100% that yes, you're planning for portfolio life now. It's never too early. My breakfast meeting this morning was with this 40-year-old, 39 actually, and Tim is starting to plan for portfolio life now. So it's not too early to start planning. We're at whatever age you are on this webinar. Okay, so bifocal career planning. This is what I was talking about earlier. You could have a job focus or you could have a career focus. You should maintain both. You should have bifocal vision, looking at your job, tactically, what am I doing now? What am I going to do next? But also career focus, what am I going to do over the course of multiple roles? So I call it the next and the next. And I love this saying, plan your career and work your plan, because if you fail to plan, you've planned to fail. Okay, next poll for the portfolio career. Do you have a written career plan? Just like to know how many of you have a written career plan, and we'll share those results. Journey to a diversified portfolio is what this title is. So if you look at the diagram in the bottom left, that's somebody with a job focus. They've got blinders on. That's all they're doing is their job. They're not thinking about portfolio life. However, I think of them as having aspirations without a plan. So you interview somebody like that and you say, what would you like to do when you're not working a full-time role? And they say things like this to me. Well, I would like to be an author. Well, the question I have for that person is, well, how much are you writing now? Don't wait till you're 60, 65 years old and you're in portfolio life to start writing. It's too late. Or I want to be a speaker. Well, how much are you speaking now? Are you taking Toastmasters now? What are you doing? I want to sit on boards. That's the classic, right? Everyone wants to be on a board. Well, most people are not successful getting on boards that don't have previous board experience. So it's kind of like catch-22. You need board experience to get on boards. Well, how do you get on boards? Well, you start young enough. You don't wait till you're at the end of your full-time set of roles to then look around for board seats. You get an executive coach like me that helps you get on boards, or helps you start writing or speaking or teaching or consulting or advising. A lot of our 75 coaches and advisors at Solid Leaders actually have full-time CEO or senior executive jobs, and they do a little fractional work with us. Okay, so this person gets religion, and now you see this diagram here. They're on a nonprofit board and on a for-profit board. And then something happens. Their company gets sold, and they find themselves in between roles. Now, that's the phraseology, in between roles. I'm interested to know how many of you are looking for a job right now. How many are satisfied in your current job? So we'll do that poll as well. And let's just see. But let's share the results of the first one. The second poll. Do you have a written career plan, Monique?
Yes, we have 13% said yes, and 87% said no.
Wow. Big set of people that don't have written career plans. You know, it's not that difficult. I will help you. In fact, everyone attending this webinar, I'm going to be willing to help. I'll give you several complimentary career coaching sessions with me where I'll help you work on a written career plan. I'll help you work on your goals. I'll help you get on boards. I'll do anything I need to do career coaching wise to help you. No charge, no obligation. Or if you're an in-place executive and you just want to grow your executive skill set, I'll help you there too. It's a try before you buy. I think it's better than just trying to make a go, no-go decision on someone that you don't know. The reason I do webinars is so I can expose myself to more people. But that's not even good enough. Just because you've seen somebody on a webinar, you don't know, are you going to have good chemistry with this person? Can you work with them? Do they have a process? Is that process clearly defined? How well defined is it? And can you follow it? And does it make sense? And can you afford it? What do they charge? I mean, there's a bunch of questions that you want answered. you can get all that answered in some complimentary coaching sessions where we don't talk about the coaching, we actually do the coaching, and you get a real-time feel for what it's like. But anyway, going back to this. So this person has a separation event. The company gets sold. They find themselves in early portfolio life. And they're sitting on more boards. They're consulting, teaching, writing, whatever. But lo and behold, another job comes along. Either they're looking for it because they're still young and hungry, or they may have made a decision that they're not going to take a full-time job ever again. And we call that unsuccessful retirement, where you take a role post your portfolio decision. And it's extremely common. I have guys that 3 and 4 times have said, never again, never another full-time role. And I always kind of wink when they tell me this, because, there's just something about working a full-time job that people love. And I understand that. However, at certain point in your life, you are going to stop working a full-time role and you're going to be in portfolio life. The secret to success here is to really plan for it. Now, something to say about your journey from receiving to giving. The early stages of one's career is about receiving, and it's about building. The later stages is about giving back, leaving a legacy, building for future generations. And this is an awesome place to be in this give back stage. I help a lot of guys, men and women, to really plan their portfolio give back and get involved in nonprofits, get involved in altruistic activities that really make a very rich life. All that to say, this breakfast this morning I had with Tim, 40 years old, a junior executive, is talking about wanting to get on nonprofit boards, not let anyone know who he is, because he's pretty up there in terms of credentials and cachet, and just be someone working at a food bank or whatever, but just really give back. So here's a 40-year-old, 39-year-old thinking about that. I think that's way cool. Okay, here's one of the most important slides in this deck. And speaking about the deck, we will send you this deck. So everyone will get a copy of the deck, okay? Sample portfolio activities. These activities are the most common activities that people participate in portfolio life. Interim leader, board member, advisor, doing coaching, consulting, doing advising work, doing all kinds of family type business stuff, teaching, speaking, writing. So it's an interesting list. And again, we're going to send you this deck as a way of saying thanks for participating in this webinar. There's benefits to portfolio life. I'll let you read them when you get the deck. There's obstacles. You can read it, and you can read about sabbatical. There's a roadmap for those wanting to advance their career. And over the last 31 years, I have seen all of what it takes to move one's career forward. I've had probably half of my 1,300 and some odd engagements have been career coaching engagements. So that's 600 or 700 engagements. It's a lot of pattern recognition coming at you here. These are the steps that you have to do yourself to be able to be effective at managing your career and making a move. And number 8, step 8 is one of the most important. I'll just tell you right now, once you get that new role, it's totally counterintuitive what you do in the first 90 to 180 days in that role. In fact, never will the expectations be lower for you by your company in the first 30, 60, 90 days. Never will your expectations be higher. So there's a mismatched expectations. And 1 out of 5, 20% of executives get fired or quit in their first year in a new executive role. They're not prepared to enter an executive role. Here's another observation for you. Most executives do not finish well. I would say well over 50% fizzle out. Their last job is not their best job. In fact, their last job is they got whacked because they were over their skis. They Peter Principled out. They weren't prepared for that. And it's a shame. It doesn't have to be that way. Here's the gauntlet I'm throwing down to all of you. Your last job needs to be your very best job. It will prepare you the best for portfolio life. And the best meaning you've hit your sweet spot, you've hit it out of the park. So it should be where this last role you do in such an incredible way, it makes a really nice splash for you as you enter into portfolio life. And that is a great momentum, produces great momentum for you as you seek to get on boards, do speaking, coaching, consulting, advising, interim executive work, etc. So as part of this offer that we're making to everyone, we will give you our toolkit of coaching. But ideas for next steps. Number one, dabble in portfolio life now. Number two, brainstorm with solid coaches and me, others. What should I be doing to prepare? Depends on where you are in your career. If you're 40, there's a certain set of activities. If you're 50, different set, and 60, much different set. Develop a demanding written career plan now, and then hire a career coach. Get an executive career coach that has at least 10 years experience and has done at least, I would say at least 200 engagements. And probably you should also ask, well, what do you bill per year? Because I don't care what their bill rate is. How much do they bill per year? That'll tell you. And how many years have they doing it? If they're billing, say $250,000, $300,000 a year, and they've done it for 10 years, well, they've got a proven track record. But there's a lot of wannabe coaches out there that I wouldn't give you a nickel for, and they sound really great until you start really digging into, well, how many clients do you have, and how long have you really been doing this, and what's your success rate like? Don't be afraid to ask for references either. Your Solid Career Toolbox, we're going to give you a bunch of tools. And I'm just curious, how many people would like to take us up on the offer for a gift certificate for some complimentary sessions? So you get all of this. You get step 1 through step 8. You get orientation to career coaching. You get all these tools. You're going to get all these tools for assessment, step 2, to assess where you are. Step 3, your goals and goal attainment for leaders and other types of goal methodology. Resume, bio, elevator speech, cover letters, all of that is included in your toolbox. It's an online toolbox. We'll give you access to it. We just need a Google Drive Gmail address from you, or we'll give you a link to reach our Google Drive file folder that we're going to set up in your name. Networking tools, interview tools, negotiating and closing tools, and onboarding tools. So that's it. We'll send you this deck. There's a little bit about us in the deck, a little bit about me in the deck. And again, there's 3 types of coaching that we do. 1 is career coaching, getting a new role. 2 is onboarding coaching, moving into that new role, starting that new role, and leadership coaching, growing in the role. So that latest poll, who would like gift certificates? We had 100% say yes, they would like a gift certificate. That is great. Every one of you is going to get a gift certificate to have some sessions with me. And I look forward to meeting you. And Monique, do you have time for questions?
Yes, we do. We do. Does anyone have any questions in the chat? You can put them in the chat. We'll be sending all of these documents we've talked about in an email to you today, so be looking for it. And that email will also have a link in it for you to go ahead and book your very first executive coaching call with Daniel. And so I suggest you get on his calendar quickly, as he truly does have limited spots and limited availability. So please make sure you get on his calendar, within the next 30 days, or, at least book it within the next 30 days. I mean, you can book it out further, but just get on his calendar. If you don't see any times available, if you go there there to the calendar and it's booked. There will be an email that you can refer to, or a phone call that you can make to his assistant to get on his calendar. But I do encourage everyone to please make sure you make that a priority today or tomorrow to get on his calendar.
And the truth is, everyone, that I charge $500 on average per session for a full hour, and about $250 on average for a half session. So just so you know that I am not cheap, but I'm also not expensive, because I used to be $2,000 an hour when I was traveling. Now everything I do is virtual. So I think it's very, very inexpensive for the executive. It is cheap. $500 an hour is super cheap for a seasoned executive coach with 30 years experience, et cetera, et cetera. But all that said, if I'm investing multiple hours in you, I would just expect you to really have integrity in the process to say, yes, if I like what I'm receiving, I'm going to continue with Daniel. And so if you're not an executive, this is not for you. If you don't make, say, $150,000 at least a year, it's probably not for you. But most of my clients make $250,000, $300,000 a year, and they're vice president and above. I specialize in CEOs and their direct reports. So no disrespect, but this is who I'm for. This is what I do. And I do have very limited time because I have an extremely active practice. I do half-hour sessions and 1 hour sessions, and I do between 10 and 20 per day, 5 days a week. So, you know, if you do schedule, please give us at least 24 hours notice to reschedule if you have to reschedule, okay? It's really important because other people want those slots. All right, thank you, Monique. Anything in closing to say?
No, just if you're wanting one of those slots, just make sure you book your time really soon and get on his calendar. And it was great having all of you here. If you have any other questions, oh, I think there's a question. Hang on. What is Daniel's average? I think you answered this, right? Average billing per customer per year. Todd wants to know, what is Daniel's average billing per customer per year?
Right. So I do about. I'm semi-retired. I spend a lot of time in real estate as well. So all of the money that I make in coaching, I'm investing in real estate. And so I used to do $1 million a year in my practice. Now I'm only doing about half that. I think last year I did $550,000. And my average is all over the map. I'm wanting to be as accessible to as many executives as possible. So instead of making a huge amount per executive, I'd much rather make very little per executive and then spread that out. So if you look at $500 a session, and we have one session a month, that's $6,000 a year. Well, I used to get paid $6,000 for one session per month with a client. But that's the corporate pay rate. So corporations pay a lot more for their executives, but I have a discounted rate for individuals. And most of you are going to probably, if you hire me, you're going to be paying out of your own pocket. So we give a 50% discount over my standard rates for individuals, which means $500 a session versus $1,000. $1,000 a session is the corporate pay rate, $500 for private pay rate. But I also spread that out. So 2 half-hour sessions would cost you $500 a month. And anyone can afford $500 a month. I have one gal who's 30 years old who makes $150,000 a year, and she's paying actually $1,000 a month. So you can afford it. You have to invest in yourself, whether it's me or somebody else, but you have to invest in your career. Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your week. Thank you, Monique.